Welcome to episode 20 of Back to the Futures, the official podcast of the Futures Collegiate Baseball League, presented by Changeup. I'm Matt Satilli. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Owen Shadrick. Owen, it's a pleasure to see you, and we've made it 20 episodes deep into this podcast series. It's great to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Matt. It's been a great week of baseball, and I can't believe, again, that we're already on episode 20. This is crazy. Scout days this week. We got a scout on today. Really excited.
Ray Fagnant, the Northeast Regional Scouting Supervisor for the Boston Red Sox, was nice enough to join us. His son plays for the New Britain Bees. He served in that role for 22 years. And it was just awesome to hear from a scout who's gone through the motions of looking at these players and talking to us about his own experiences and what he would be looking for from one of the many talents in the Futures League. And as you mentioned, it's the start of 3 scouting days. So it will be Westfield and New Britain live from New Britain Stadium today, Monday, August 3rd. Tomorrow it's Worcester and Brockton from Campanelli Stadium, and then on Wednesday it will be North Shore and Nashua. That is at Frazier Field. That was originally in Nashua, now in Lynn, Massachusetts. Owen, let's talk some baseball. What did you see this weekend?
Yeah, Matt, on Saturday I was in Brockton for a great doubleheader between North Shore and the Rocks. The Rocks ended up winning Game 1. North Shore ended up winning Game 2. It was a great all-around baseball, great pitching performances. And it was a great day at the plate in Game 2 for Jack Wharf, a fellow Minutemen from UMass. And, again, some great baseball that we saw this week.
Yeah, speaking of doubleheaders, the New Britain Bees swept the Westfield Starfires the other day. They've now won 4 straight. They're 10-15. They've climbed up into 5th place. And they've really caught fire in the last week. They're riding those pitchers, whether it be Price, Meade, Kasparius, Kirk, Sheehan. They've got a lot of arms, and their bats have really stepped up to the plate. So New Britain's firing on all cylinders right now.
Bees are buzzing. Bees are buzzing.
I love it. Now, also, speaking of the New Britain Bees, if you haven't heard, there are going to be 3 Futures League games televised live on NESN starting tonight. It is our first ever television contract with a network. So 6:35 from New Britain Stadium, it will be the Westfield Starfires taking on the New Britain Bees. We also have 2 more games coming up. So this upcoming Saturday, the 8th at 1 p.m., it'll be Worcester Brockton. And then the following Saturday, the 15th, it will be North Shore Nashua. So all 6 teams get exposure. It's going to be a great chance to help grow the league and show fans all across New England how we operate here at the FCBL. Owen, what can you say just about how significant this is and how cool it'll be to get that media exposure on NESN for the league?
This is extremely significant. This is a great job by Joe Palucci to get this going. Matt, you will be there on the sidelines. Emma Carmen, the media director for North Shore, will be on the sidelines as well. And Donnie Percaro from the Worcester Bravehearts will be doing play-by-play alongside the home play-by-play guys. Really great exposure for the league. So excited to watch these 3 games on NESN.
Also, shout out to Dave Peterson of the Worcester Bravehearts. He was another instrumental piece in getting these broadcasts on air, helping to shuffle the schedule around so that way all 6 teams could get some exposure, and just a true testament to how successful the league has been this summer and the level of competition and how everything has gone so swimmingly so far.
Yeah, and with the cancellations of the Cape League and the NECBL, plus this NESN contract and Scout Day, Futures League is on a high right now.
I love it. It's crazy that we're more than halfway through the season, but it's been awesome, and we have a lot of meaningful baseball in August. Still a lot of stuff to be decided in terms of the playoffs and also scout days for these players. So many of them have expressed how big of a deal it is for them. So super excited to get those underway. And we have a great interview with Ray Fagnant. It's always good to switch it up and have a person who might not be a player or a coach come in and explain their role. And Ray had some awesome things to say about what the league has done for scouts. So without further ado, let's get into our interview. Here is Ray Fagnant. At this time, we now welcome on a very special guest. For the last 22 years, he has served as the Northeast Regional Scouting Supervisor for the Boston Red Sox. It is Ray Fagnant. Ray, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for joining us today. How you doing?
Very good. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you on, especially because when this episode releases, it will be the start of Scout Days. It'll be the first of 3 with Westfield and New Britain live from New Britain Stadium. We'll get into everything in detail in a second. But first, just to start off, how long have you been involved in baseball?
Actually, obviously playing my entire life, but I got out of Assumption College in '87. I signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Was with Pirates for a couple of years. Then I spent 5 years playing in the Red Sox farm system. Then my last spring training with the Red Sox, we're in camp, and they asked me if I had a chance to make the Pawtucket roster. And they asked me if I threw good at batting practice. So I guess that meant that they didn't envision me catching in Boston any day soon, but they wanted me to stay in the organization. And that was 93, and I've been scouting. I've had the area ever since then. I took over for the legendary Bill Enos, who scouted up here for 53 years. So I guess in the last 80-plus years, it's only been the two of us up here, but it's been my entire life, and it's just what makes it so special is it's been with the Red Sox. As a team I grew up with, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Red Sox fan, so it's made it really exciting on several different levels.
And what goes into your day-to-day role as a scout with the Red Sox?
Well, it's doesn't matter whether it's December 20th or June 15th, the day after the draft. It's just every day there's no day off, if you will. And like today's a good example. We always operate as though the draft is tomorrow, and we had a Zoom call with the front office scouting department, kind of going over players, kind of an early look for next year, but also specifically identifying those players. Majority of them are going to be at the two events next week, the East Coast Pro and the Area Code. So kind of identifying what our list would look like next June, whenever the draft is, and identifying where we are on those players right now and prioritizing who we're going to see next week. But it's just that's kind of like the MO is working every day as though the draft is tomorrow, and just maximizing looks, constantly playing with lists and reshuffling them, and just trying to get it right, because scouting is basically just an opinion, if you will, on a player. And the more looks, the more opinions we have, if you will, the better chance we have of being accurate. But you have to be able to go in a ballpark, maybe see one at bat, see one inning, and make a decision on somebody. And you have to be able to do that. And if you have the luxury of multiple looks, multiple ABs, multiple innings, all the better. But we always just like to stay prepared, know who we're looking at, prioritizing players, and staying on top of it.
So walk me through a situation. Say there's a player you've been keeping an eye on for either a number of sessions or that you've been in contact with. What goes into contacting someone who might be more in charge of the entire oversight process versus just the Northeast region, and asking them to come in and get another opinion, or maybe asking the player if he wants to get a workout in front of the team or get an additional look before the draft actually occurs?
That's a good question. The way the basic process works is I go into the season with what's called my follow list. Any given year, it may be, 60, 70, 80 players. And this is any player that's captured my attention or caught my eye. Some of those obviously premium guys at the top of the list that are, what we call the famous guys, if you will, that are nationally known and we've gotten a lot of looks at. Some of the guys on the bottom of the list might be something as simple as, I was at East Cobb. I was, I got one look at this kid and he hit a ball a long way, or I saw one good inning or what have you. But we start with that list and we kind of prioritize them. And we're in constant communication. The next step above me is the cross-checker. And I have New England, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, PA. And a cross-checker has basically, Quincy Boyd, my area, basically has 3 scouts under him. It's basically Maine down to South Carolina. So he's looking at the top of my list. It's kind of like a pyramid where we're kind of shuffling guys towards the top. So it's somebody that identified that has a chance to be in a very good draft. We all know about him. And the cross-checker who works with maybe a more precise list, his list might be comprised of the top players from each of his 3 areas. He'll look at that and, I'll identify the guys that need to be we call cross-check. He'll see those guys and he'll further prioritize his list, and, the national guy or the scouting director will see those guys. So it's just levels of kind of a pyramid where we kind of shuffle those lists and kind of get them more precise at the top. So those guys are identified early, and over the course of the season, I'll try and get as many at-bats with them as they can. If it's somebody the cross-checker comes in and sees and says, this is going to figure into, he'll be prominent, he's going to figure in our top couple picks maybe, the scouting director is going to want to get as many looks. And anytime we can work somebody up, that's a huge advantage. And even if it's, for instance, for next year's draft, we'll get as many looks as we can at them this summer and fall. And in the winter, little things like being able to go in and, see them work out at a local facility, or, see a pitcher throw. And even if it's something as simple as just seeing a simple flat ground in December where he's just playing catch or something, just a chance to see these guys, spend some time with them, get to know about their makeup and their background, get some familiarity with them. It's a constant 12-month iterative process. So it's a lot of information, a lot of getting to know these guys, obviously a lot of seeing as much as we can on the field, but it's just getting to know everything about these guys, their thought process, seeing how they improve, seeing the adjustment that they make, and just ultimately getting comfortable and have a really good feel for them. But it's just, like I said, it just works out, my big list, and we kind of just funnel it towards the top, and we try and be as precise as we can. So when it comes draft day, when there's literally a big board with 750 magnets on it, ranked from 1 to 750, there is it's an inexact science, but there is a science to it. So we just try and be as precise as we can, but just being as thorough and talking to as many resources and seeing as much as we can with these players helps us to prioritize them and line them up correctly.
That's fascinating to hear the depth of what you guys go through just in terms of how those guys eventually make it onto the big board. And as a whole, what do you think the Futures League has meant to scouts this summer with sports more or less at a standstill? And now the Futures League giving you guys an opportunity to see a lot of talent, not just in the Northeast, but guys from big schools like a Vanderbilt or, a player who might be staying with a host family. What has that meant to scouts to have a place to watch and stay active this summer?
I can't overstate how great a thing it's been for us. In a typical summer, you've got a lot of leagues going on, so the reality is guys are spread out. You might not see as many guys typically as at Futures Leagues games, but given the fact there's not a whole lot else going on, and also given the fact that the talent has been outstanding. I've been going to games where there's 8, 10, 12, 15 scouts. I remember the first Sunday of the season in Britain, getting there and seeing 18 scouts there, and it was tremendous. Guys were excited to see games, and that's continued, and the talent's been great. And the nice thing, one exceptional thing about this summer is being able to go back and see guys, because there's a couple of high-profile kids in the league, and everybody, as much as they worked out for those 5 months, during the quarantine, no matter how many times you threw bullpens or how many times you hit in the cage, these kids were just not ready for game speed. And, you saw high-profile, prominent kids not performing well. But we had the luxury of going back and seeing them. And what's been amazing, I'm sure you guys have seen it, just how much better, just over the first couple of weeks, how much better the quality of play has improved. Guys throwing strikes and hitters hitting, and just the overall quality of the play. And that's because kids they've gotten the opportunity to get repetition. Again, no matter how much they practiced, in the off season, and this year, especially the extended off season, just to see how quickly the quality of play has picked up has been phenomenal. And also something that's been unique this year is to see lesser known guys, maybe smaller school guys, but just to be able to see those guys, where ordinarily, we're able to see any given team maybe 2-3 times. We're able to go back and see these teams and get 13, 14, 15 players deep on the roster. And, like an example, this week, it was great. Cole Chudoba from, of all places, from Assumption College, from my alma mater. I saw they had the 15 strikeout game. And the irony is, I'd seen that team play several times. I saw Worcester play several times. I went to my game cards. And, wow, I've seen 14 pitchers. I've seen 14 of their pitchers. I hadn't seen them yet. I see one guy I need to chase down. But just a year where somebody from, Division II school like that, and what's even nicer is my school, my alma mater, but just those kids had a chance to be seen, and they're going to be scouted in the spring like they're on somebody's list right now. So that's been great, where it's given kids so many opportunities. And, I told my scouting director the other day, this has been as much fun as I've had scouting the last 20 or 25 years, because usually during the summer with all the major events, all the big leagues, the Cape and everything, there's a finite number of days, and there's so many things we have to see. But this year, with the Futures League and other things like Legion Baseball, good old-fashioned Legion Baseball and some of these Twilight Leagues, we've been able to go out and discover guys. It's just been actual real scouting where we can see somebody, see a Futures League pitcher, 13, 14, 15 deep in the rotation of the roster. And these guys have had an opportunity to play, an opportunity to be seen, and these guys are on the radar now, which has been great.
Yeah, we've talked about the importance of D3 schools and kids from D3 schools getting these looks on these teams, and it's awesome that a guy like Cole Chudoba can get the strikeout record, especially him being from your alma mater. So Let's talk about other players on Futures League teams without giving away all your cards. Is there any specific player that you're looking at from the Futures League rosters this summer?
What's been nice is a lot of them have been in one place, because with some of these kids, some of the higher profile names, that would have been spread out, Cape, Alaska, spread out throughout the country. Every one of these rosters has good names. I can go down, not to single any team out, but just, North Shore comes to mind with, the boys from BC with Morissette, Freelick, and one of my favorites, Bernsey behind the plate. But, they've had it's been good seeing those guys. And then, Jared Dupree has had a great year. And every team have been digging up guys. I saw Keegan yesterday, Dominic Keegan, who got a chance to really be front and center this summer after a spring where he had some injuries. He was player of the week last week, but most importantly, these guys have gotten a chance to get at bats. And a lot of these guys too, has been a little bit of redemption where either they had some of these kids, some other guys had maybe subpar spring. It's completely understandable because it was a small season. Some kids are slow starters, but to see them in the Futures League, just again, maybe they didn't have great first couple games, but we're able to go back and keep seeing these guys where, we've seen the improvement over the course of the summer. And I think what's great is a lot of these college coaches have understood where, these kids need to play. What happens in the summer is coaches will say, yeah, he's going to pitch, he's only going to throw 20 innings. But the reality is I think you're starting to see where kids need to play. The only way you're going to get better is to actually play baseball. And playing games in the summer with fans in the stands, a runner on third base, and a tie game in the ninth, like these kids need to play. They need to be in those situations. And versus, being, quote, shut down in the summer and going back in the fall and throwing very sterile, vanilla bullpens or very controlled inter-squad scrimmages at school. Like there's no substitute for being on the field, playing in games. And what's great is a lot of these coaches have understand that and have really taken opportunity of putting these kids in competitive situations this summer, because it's one thing to see a kid throw a pen and see these Rapsodo or pitch track workouts where they're throwing whatever. It's a different thing to see them in a game again. Okay, bases loaded, tie game, ninth inning. Let's see how good you are right now. That's when it matters, but giving them game experience. And that's what the league has given these kids a chance to do this year, because you can never, no matter what you do, you can never replicate that, in workouts or bullpens or BPs or inter-squads.
Also, in addition to the stuff you're seeing on the field, I'm curious how you value some of the intangibles. Just getting a chance to talk to some of the kids, getting to know them a little bit off the diamonds, and if there are any make or break decisions, if there are any factors that go into if you're on the fence about a kid, whether or not you invite him to a scout, just any red flags or any things that really stick out to you that a player will say or indicate that is not entirely based on his play on the field.
That is huge. And I think people are starting to realize that is a big, big, big part of our evaluation in our process. We talk about makeup and, things like that. A lot of times when it's really busy in the summer, you got a lot of events going on, you're just jumping in and seeing a game and really can't see things in depth. So that's the value, again, I spoke about, our winter workouts, off-season workouts, off-season visits. But the way it's been beneficial this summer is, getting to a game, say, the team's got a 5:30 game, they got 3 o'clock BP. It's interesting to get there 3 o'clock and see who's dressed on the field ready to go and see who's wandering in 10, 15 minutes late or, when they think you aren't watching. A very valuable part of scouting is seeing players when they don't think you're watching them. But that's a big part of it, their pregame preparation. Or just there's players throughout the league on teams that, we might know more on a personal basis, and I can say, and they're comfortable say, hey, how about this guy? What kind of teammate is this kid? But that's very important to know. But especially now, everybody was so full of enthusiasm and fired up the first couple of weeks of the season. And that's understandable because they hadn't got a chance to play. But right now, when you talk about getting to the dog days, and this is something these kids aren't used to, because most of the time by the end of July, their season's winding down. But it's late July. They got another couple weeks of the season. It's 95 degrees. They got optional BP at 3 o'clock. Who shows up at 3 o'clock? That tells you, that speaks volumes about these kids. and how they go about their work, and watching the pitchers throw their early afternoon BPs, watching guys catch pens. But, you find out, the game is one thing, but you find out which of these kids really want to play, how committed they are, the desire, and, little things like, I know something the league probably doesn't love is the fact that kids have to drive to games. And I completely understand the logistics and why it needs to be done. You simply can't have buses. They are being very responsible, but the league is being very responsible in, unfortunately having kids get themselves to games. But that's a part of it. You find out a lot about somebody's time management. You're living wherever and you got a 2-hour drive to get to Brockton. Well, do I leave early, get there on time, get there early and what have you. But you learn a lot about these kids' time management. You learn a lot about their discipline and, how committed they are. And that is something I absolutely always notice is when kids get to the park, what they do when they get there, their pregame preparation. And I was up at Leominster last week, and it was, it was a 98-degree day, and it was a 5 o'clock game, 3 o'clock BP for the away team, and I got there about 2:30. And one of the players was already out. One of the visiting team players was already out in left field. He had his bands hooked up to the fence, and he was doing his Jaeger band exercises. And this is a half an hour before he even had to get there. It's on a hot day on Saturday. He had a 2.5-hour drive, and that spoke volumes about his desire to play. How committed he was and how serious. And those are things that you can't fake. And it was just really, really interesting to see. And that's just speaks volumes about these kids, and that tells you a lot.
Before we return to our interview with Ray Fagnant, we wanted to share a message from one of our sponsors, Changeup. We're excited to announce a brand new partnership this season with Changeup, a cutting-edge, player-centric pitch tracking solution promoting health and safety, allowing coaches to capture and analyze a proprietary set of performance analytics, and helping pitchers maximize their potentials. Coming to baseball programs around the world this year, Changeup eliminates the administrative overhead associated with adhering to pitch count regulations, allowing coaches to focus on baseball. Coaches and parents at all levels, Little League, AAU, high school, and the collegiate level, take notice. Changeup is the clear choice to ensure your pitchers aren't being thrown too much or too often and are getting proper rest. Together, we can make this great game even better by protecting arms and ensuring compliance with pitching guidelines. For more information, visit Changeup's website, www.changeup.io. That's www.change-up.io. Changeup. Every pitch counts. We now return to our interview with Ray Fagnant. Yeah, we could talk all day about the play on the field, but the little things matter just as much.
Absolutely.
And when this episode will be released, it will be the first of the 3 scout days, as we mentioned. What will you be looking for during these scout days, and which drills do you view as the most important for players you've already seen extensively?
I love scout days. The only unfortunate thing is I won't be around for them. I'll be at the East Coast and the area code, but those will be well attended. And in the scout day specifically, it's another look to see some different things. Typically what we've done for every day that I've ever scouted, every workout we ever had, we start with the 60. It's almost cliche-ish. We run the 60. And I always tell these players, hey, listen, I've been scouting for 25 plus years, and I can't tell you the last time I cared about what somebody ran the 60 in, but it's something that we do. It's just to get a time, just to get some degree of athleticism, maybe something to write down in a box, maybe something we do out of force of habit. But, you can see there's some kids that work at it. Some kids that work at running the 60 want that time. But what I want to stress to these kids is, like the 60 specifically, when I see them run that, I'm more concerned about seeing the athleticism, seeing what kind of shape they're in, seeing their stride, just kind of see them move around a little bit. Some kids get so over-consumed with their 60 time. And now that it's a showcase generation with perfect game and PBR and all these other things, you'll see these kids at 13, 14, 15 years old. Parents will spend thousands of dollars in the off season getting them a personal coach or, literally a running trainer to run a better 60 time or what have you. But I just want to tell these people just, it's not necessary. Just go out, be in shape, run a few sprints before the game, just work at it. But specifically as it relates to these scout days, we will do the 60. And again, like I said, it's not make or break for me. It never has been. I know Dustin Pedroia, for instance, did not run a good 60 ever in his life, but he was 24 out of 25 stealing bases in the big leagues one year. And Jackie Bradley specifically, not a very good 60 time at all. I bet if he went to a lot of showcases, when he was at that age, a lot of coaches or evaluators would say, hey, this guy can't run. But there isn't a ball you can hit in the field that Jackie Bradley cannot run down. So his speed plays. But for argument's sake, we will run the 60. Things that are valuable that, everything that we do is valuable in some regard or the other. But specifically as it relates to scout days, they'll take a very controlled, extended infield, outfield. And that's when you can really monitor arm strength. You can watch somebody for 4 or 5 games and never see a ball hit to them, or never see a ball hit to them in a situation where they have to make a throw. And we'll be able to, we'll gauge arm strength on all the position players. We really try and stay away from pitchers to ever have to do anything in these scout days, because we don't want to disrupt their game readiness, their bullpens, their side sessions, what have you. But we'd rather just see them in games. We don't want to put them in a situation where they're going to try and do too much, potentially injure themselves. But it's more geared to the position players, but we can see them run with no variable. We'll see them run the 60. We can see them take an extended IO so we can monitor their arm strength. We can see some of their mechanics and some of their actions in the field. We can put infielders through in very limited time. You guys will see it. Put everybody shortstop and have the obligatory couple balls hit right at them, a ball up the middle, a ball in the hole, and a ball with a charge, so we can see them moving like in all eight baseball planes, if you will. And the BP, we're able to monitor the swing, see what sort of raw power they have. And what's really good is it's an opportunity to get some good video on these guys too, because video is very big with us. We like to have, as much of a video database as we can with these players. And also it gives us a chance to, maybe, be on the field up close and just introduce ourselves to these guys and just get a little bit of feel for them and just see the enthusiasm they have going into these things. But and it's also on a different level, another level. It's a good opportunity for the scouts to connect with the coaches, ask about players, and it's just a huge, huge positive. And I'm just so upset that unfortunately I won't be around for them, but I will be sure to have somebody from the Red Sox there for them. And this year, because MLB is a little stricter with their scout limits at the East Coast and the area codes being down there will not be as many area scouts from the Northeast down at Hoover and Lake Point. So there will be a good number of anybody that can be at these scout days will be there, because they're tremendously beneficial for us. We really appreciate the league putting them on, and it's a great opportunity to see a lot of different facets of these kids and see a lot of different dimensions.
Yeah, so as a follow-up to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, you mentioned that there's a list of high-profile players that everyone recognizes and knows is at the top of a lot of teams' draft boards. But is there a player in your experience that was a diamond in the rough that was overlooked by a number of other teams that ended up succeeding in the majors that you're proud looking back on?
There are so many. It's such a broad-based question. There's so many examples. I can't think of one off the top of my head right now, but anytime somebody from the area gets the big leagues, it's a big deal. And especially when it's not a high draft pick. But I'm sorry, I'm unprepared here. I can't come up with an example because there's almost like too many here. But anytime somebody from our area gets up to the big leagues, it's a great thing for the entire area, and it's a great thing for all of scouting. We love to see these kids, even if we don't get them. We love to see these kids advance and get to the major leagues and get opportunities to advance in professional baseball. And even if it's guys that don't get to the major leagues, there's so many examples of, kids we've maybe drafted in lower rounds that go on to have an impact in the game. I'm proud of the fact that I've got, 4 or 5 guys that, we drafted and signed that didn't get to the big leagues, but, they're good high school coaches or college coaches or coach Legion. But, they've shared their passion for the game, the experience they've had in professional baseball, and kind of, to the benefit of local kids. Just yesterday, Kyle Jackson, for instance, the manager up in Nashua, I signed him out of Alvern High School years ago, and he had a good career. He was an all-star in the Arizona Fall League, had a really good career, and it's funny, he was laughing about it yesterday, just reminiscing how it was really bad timing for him. Just how we had Lester and so many other big leaguers, Buck Holtz and Bowden and so many other big leaguers. He came up at that. We had a wealth of pitching his year, but he's somebody that, that's a perfect example. He's managing your league, doing a great job. The kids love him. He's developing these players, and just another, an example of somebody that, their experience in baseball, they were able to go on and share it, and they're positively impacting a lot of kids.
Yeah, Kyle Jackson, part of the second place Nashua Silver Knights right now. So shout out to him and his.
He's done a great job.
And let's talk about your personal life a little bit. Your oldest son, Christian, he got drafted by the Orioles in the 39th round of the 2019 MLB Draft, and he plays for the New Britain Bees. What's it been like watching him in the league, and what was that moment like for your family when he got drafted?
It's been especially fun just because, all three of my boys just love to play. And that particular day, I was somewhere in South Shore. It was a high school game watching Sebastian Keane. We had just drafted him, and it was the state tournament. I was there to kind of monitor him, and I was out in right field behind the fence. Excuse me. And, I'm listening to the draft, and they announced, with their 39th selection, Baltimore Orioles select Christian Fagnant, catcher, East Granby High School. And instantly I got 40, 50, 60 texts. It was really exciting. And he was playing a Legion game that night. My wife called me, and she said she found out there was some little kid that's their bat boy, and he found out. So I don't know what a 12-year-old bat boy is doing with a cell phone in the dugout, but he knew, and it was really exciting. She said within minutes everybody at the ballpark knew, and so he happened to come up in the ninth inning, minutes after, and it would have been anticlimactic if anything but something good happened, but he ended up. Hitting a ball off the right field fence. She sent me the video, so it was really exciting. But I just remember that night coming home and just being so proud because I don't know if you were aware, but the year before, almost a year to the day, he had suffered a horrific leg injury in his first Legion game after his junior year, a double compound fracture. And it was horrific. And he just worked really hard to come back from that. And, had a good senior year. And I always told him, that injury, unfortunately, there were a lot of D1 schools that were interested in him, but that injury, unfortunately, got precluded him from any of those opportunities. I always tell all these kids, not to sound like a dad, but if you're really interested in baseball, if you're serious about baseball, good grades and your studies are only going to help you. And so because of that injury, he wasn't able to go to the East Coast. The area codes that year was off the radar for the summer, but he had exceptional, off the chart grades, perfect SATs, and, the academic schools, the Ivies and SCACs remained interested. And, Amherst has been a great opportunity for him. And obviously this spring not being able to play, but the league has been great. And what's been really nice about it is him being in New Britain. That's where I finished up my professional career with the Red Sox. And to see him there, and it's just been fun to see him play because in a typical summer, I get to see so little of my boys play, which is kind of very disappointing, but I've been able to see him play a lot of games and play a part in some premium games. And just this Sunday, it was a great doubleheader at Westfield. The first game was really exciting. He was, Emmett Sheen went out and struck out, I think, 14 6 innings, but there were a lot of scouts there. It was a great matchup. And, my son got up in the last inning, the man on second, had a big hit off of one of our favorite players, Reggie Crawford, who's going to be a big leaguer, 93, 95, big fastball, really good breaking ball, and is a very, very good hitter. And, my son got to know him through our East Coast Pro and Area Code events and, went to the Home Run Derby, the controversial, interesting Home Run Derby, and it was a good second game. So that was just a great day at the ballpark, seeing some great baseball, a lot of scouts there, some great performances, seeing my son be right in the middle of it. But it's just been and again, by no means minimizing the horrific events that have gone on, the tragedies, the literally millions of tragedies that have happened because of this, this terrible virus. Certainly being aware of what's gone on in the last 5 months. What's nice is, the positive out of this is there have been some bright spots, and these kids deserve these bright spots because, a lot of bad things have happened, and everybody's cognizant of that, continues to think about that and pray for that daily. But baseball in whole, and the Futures League specifically, has just been a refuge for a lot of these kids. It was great just to see a lot of kids at the ballpark Sunday, a lot of families at the ballpark, a lot of scouts, and just, enjoying baseball, specifically what your league has done for the baseball community in the Northeast this year. It's been a godsend. We're really fortunate. We're really appreciative of it. But Sunday was just a great day. We got to see a lot of stuff. It was a fun day at the park.
Yeah, it's been fantastic to play baseball this summer, and we're honored to be part of it. And let's talk about the MLB Draft for a minute. There were only 5 rounds this year due to COVID. How did you adjust, and how did that impact both your department and the players?
Well, so many things leading up to it. Obviously, the season finished around March 13th. I was in Florida for about 5 weeks, and that's kind of when we get the call to come home. And I was going to stay down for another week or so. There was some very productive things going on down there, and also Amherst was coming down later that week. So I was going to see them, but my son called me the night before and said their spring trip was canceled. And then the next day he told me their season's canceled. He's coming home. And my wife had called me, and, she's the chief legal counsel for the UConn Foundation. And she's just, for the last 5 months, been 10, 12 hours a day for her, running the school, kind of trying to stay on top of all this. But I've got some good insight from her. And she said, get home. And so I got home, and short on the way home, basically, is when MLB kind of pulled the plug and said, all scouts off the road, you need to get home. That said, though, about 1/3 of the Division I season was played. So in a sense, from March 13th until the draft in June, March, April, May, June, we had 3 months, even though we weren't seeing games, we had 3 months to just every day, all day, just prepare for the draft. The majority of days during the spring, I'm driving 4 or 5 hours to a game. I watch a game, drive 4 or 5 hours home. So you're seeing games, but don't have a chance to, do your admin work or really prepare. But this was a unique, hopefully once in a lifetime situation. But we were remarkably well prepared in the sense that we had seen what we had seen. And thinking about it, we had from last June up until March 13th to prepare, all the summer work, the off-season visits, the video, and everything else. But one of a powerful tool that we have that, is no secret now, everybody has, is a program called Synergy, where we had every pitch of every Division I game played this spring. It's a sophisticated database where you can query things any way you want. Like any a particular hitter I like, for instance, I could call up, 2-strike at bats versus left-handed pitcher, in certain situations versus breaking balls. But we're able to get a really extensive look at these players. And we had maybe over the course of that spring, 2-3 Zoom sessions where we're going over our list and kind of, again, refining our list towards the top. So we identified who we wanted in those top 5 rounds, really had constant, regular conversation about these players, able to go over a lot of video, a lot of statistics, a lot of data, looking back at statistics from previous years. And, we lined them up, and I think we, pretty much, we'll know in 5 years if we got it right, but we're comfortable with what we got. We got the guys we wanted. And the way that carried into the next process, which was also remarkably unique, the non-drafted free agent process for that, that Super Sunday, those 9 a.m. phone calls, we were able to use the same scouting and evaluation process and kind of identify the small list of players we were going to go after as a non-drafted players. And we're able to put together Zoom calls with these players where we had members of the Major League staff, the Major League front office, scouting, and player development, and kind of give those guys a kind of a preview, an intro, and orientation to the Red Sox organization. Up until, that Sunday morning, we were able to start calling them. But in addition, we had some, once we got the green light to be able to communicate with these players, we had those phone calls and Zoom sessions. In some cases, we had some of our major league players reach out to these prospects. And I think not only did we do well in the draft, I think we did very well in the free agent signing period where we got some guys that we really wanted. And, that process in and of itself was remarkably unique where we had a strategy, we lined everything up. And at 8:59, or probably 7 in the morning, every scout in the country had a number punched in and ready to hit send. And we were able to get 2 really good players. I personally was able to get 2 really good players. We got, Jake McKenna from Fordham University, who was supposed to be a New Britain B this summer. So we kind of raided the middle of New Britain's lineup, but we got Jake. He can really swing the bat. He's got a bright future in our organization. and also right-handed pitcher Jordan Valerio from St. Joe's University. I was not able to see him pitch in person this spring because of the COVID. I was planning on seeing that next Friday, but as a result, I saw every pitch that he threw on video, numerous times. Was able to walk through the 5 games that he pitched, and it gave us a really unique view at him. And so, because of our preparation, I think we had a good draft and a good free agent signing period. And so in a way, it sounds almost oxymoronic, but this is probably without question, the most thorough draft process we've ever had, because we had so much time to just look and evaluate, line guys up, versus, sounds weird, but actually seeing these players play live games. But it's something that we never ever want to have to do again, but we were prepared for it. We had these contingency plans, and part of it, I guess, is testimony to the great job that our front office did, keeping us engaged and keeping us, perpetually prepared 12 months out of the year for the draft.
Yeah, that's really neat. And that's good to hear that I guess a lot of that downtime was used productively and that it didn't have as much of a negative effect as it might have looked like from the outside looking in. So talking about some other fun stuff about your experiences around Major League Baseball, you were also a catcher at the 1999 Home Run Derby at Fenway. What was it like watching those guys like Mark McGwire, Ken Griffey Jr., Sammy Sosa from that up close and personal?
One of my greatest experiences ever. And occasionally at 3 a.m, if you're in a hotel room and turn on ESPN2, you can find it. It was something, like I said, it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I was there for all 4 days. The first day was the first ever Futures game. That's a staple of All-Star Weekend, what they call it. No, but that was the first ever Futures game. And I remember, for fear of sounding, dating myself, in that Futures game was Alfonso Soriano and Lance Berkman, a lot of other really good prospects who went on to, from prospect status, to have long, distinguished Major League careers and are out of the game. So I got testimony how long ago that was. But, I got to see that Futures game. The Home Run Derby was such a thrill, being close up to those guys, be right behind the plate. And, I played against Mike Piazza in the minors, got to know him pretty well, so it's neat to see him again. But just being part of that and just how great an experience that was, and just amazing to see that close up. And also, that next night, just the All-Star game, catching the bullpen for that, and that was, Pedro's historic performance, and that was, never forget Ted Williams coming in the golf cart. It's just such an iconic, video of that. And also being aware that it was a Fox game, and I knew in advance how to play the camera angle, so I knew where to stand in relation to Pedro Martinez during the national anthem to be on TV. And when Ted Williams was going by in the golf cart, I knew where to stand, so I was right in a couple of those shots. But it was just a unique, historic experience, and my position with the Red Sox has enabled me to do a lot of other things like that. But what the Red Sox really encouraged us to do, that I've got a lot of respect for and is very beneficial, is being on the field in any of these events as much as we can. They really encourage us being on the field for the East Coast Pro. I've managed a team for several years now. The area codes, we're on the field for that, and we do the summer rivalry. And I've been very involved over the last 3 World Baseball Classics. Being a bullpen catcher for Team USA. Being exposed to and around these guys, but just being on the field as much as I can, as much as possible, because, whether it's seeing, going to scout kids at a 15-year-old, 15U Legion game, or being on the field at the WBC with, 25, Major League All-Stars, or, catching pens with Buster Posey and Jonathan Lucroy, and, catching these guys in the bullpen with, Greg Maddux as the pitching coach. It's obviously a good scouting experience, but it's everything you do in baseball every day is a great learning experience, and being around these guys just makes you better. Is one of the great perks of the job.
Well, Ray, this has been awesome so far, and it's been super insightful to hear what you've had to say so far. We got one final segment for you. It's called Quick Hits. It's presented by Zephyr, the official on-field hat of the Futures League. Zephyr, high quality and innovative design since 1993. So we got a couple more questions for you, for our audience, to help to get to know you a little bit better. Is that cool with you?
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Favorite teammate you've played with over your years?
I got to go with Jeff Bagwell, Hall of Famer. That's the easy pick. I go with the Hall of Famer, but it's a lot of fun being around him.
That's great. Did you play with him in New Britain with the Red Sox?
In Winter Haven, originally when he signed, I was with the Pirates, got released, signed with the Red Sox, and we were in the Gulf Coast League together, and then went to Winter Haven. He was there briefly. But that was in '89. But the year '91, when he tore up the Eastern League, I was actually in Winter Haven. I was with him the year before. Very
cool. Favorite ballpark that you've either played in or attended as a fan or a scout?
I'll go Beehive / New Britain Stadium in New Britain, because that's where I played with the Red Sox, had all those great memories. And right across the parking lot in New Britain Stadium, I scouted. Was there briefly, but scouted there for the last 25 years. That's where my boys, my wife, probably have most of their baseball memories, because I covered New Britain and brought them to so many games from the time they were infants, literally carrying the baby carrier, to the ballpark. And to see my son playing there this summer, it's just really gone full cycle. But there's a lifetime, just a panorama of memories at New Britain Ballpark.
Yeah, for any Connecticut guy, there's a lot of memories and a lot of games as a youth going there, seeing the Rockettes, and especially for you playing there. So great answer. What's a baseball stadium or a sporting event that's on your bucket list that you haven't gotten a chance to attend yet?
I got you. And I'm going to. Field of Dreams in Dyersville, Iowa. My wife gave me the greatest birthday present of all time. Next September 4th and 5th, we've rented it out. We'll be at the Field of Dreams. We've rented it out. We have full access to the house, the facility, the lights. So I'll be there with the boys. And we will be hitting balls into the cornfield until the wee hours of the morning. But that's something I always dreamed about. And, she's always there's nobody who's ever been better at coming up with presents. And she came up with this completely off the radar. But that is, I guess, the ultimate, bucket list dream field, because you've done Fenway and all the rest of them. But Field of Dreams, I mean, that's as good as you get, I guess. That's, that's going to be a lot of fun. Cannot wait for that.
That's incredible. We'll have to follow up and see how that experience was, because getting the all-access pass, that's something that not a lot of people get to do.
Uh-huh.
So either hearkening back to your playing days, or if you were still lacing up your cleats right now, what would your walk-up music be?
ABBA, Dancing Queen.
Okay.
If you would story behind that, when my son, they played their East Granby High School played their senior day at Yard Goat Stadium in Hartford last year, and my son spent hours thinking of his walk-up song, and for some reason, Dancing Queen just came on. We thought of it. It was kind of funny, but kind of cool. And just that next day, Chris Shaw, who's a local kid that I know you guys know well, a BC kid, who's in the major leagues. So we followed his career. I spent a lot of time with him. He's been great to my boys. And there's something on MLB.com about him where he changed his walk-up to music to Dancing Queen. And he went off and hit about 7 home runs that 1 week in AAA, got called up to the big leagues. And I think his second big league at bat went 478 feet to right field. And they did a big piece about his walk-up music being Dancing Queen. I remember calling him about it, but that was a good one.
Chris Shaw, one of the brightest stars that's in the majors, that's come through the Futures League circles, and
yes, there you
go.
So
he means a lot to me. Now, favorite big league player, whether it be current or historical?
Probably Carlton Fisk. I kind of grew up in that era where he was the guy, and he was a catcher. It was just fun to follow his career. Obviously, Yaz was my dad's guy, and getting to actually spend time with Yaz years after the fact when I signed with the Red Sox. And Yaz was always, he'd go there and he'd go to minor league camp because he wanted to be on the backfield, but he'd be there being an instructor. I remember my first spring training. I'm in Winter Haven. It was pitchers and catchers only at the time, back when we used to do that. So there's 5 of us hitting on the field, and I see a golf cart coming over. And you can't make this up. It's Carl Yastrzemski and Ted Williams. And they come over. Carl gets out of the cart, with a Diet Coke, smoking a heater. And I'm working on hitting line drives. And Yaz comes over. He yells, "Hey, stop." And I get out. He goes, "Look at your size. Okay, how big are you? All right, what are you doing hitting soft line drives the other way? Swing a lot of expletives in there too." But so Yaz was telling me to basically drop the backside collapse, uppercut, and swing as hard as I could. But, in spite of the hitting coach being right there. So I simply did what Yaz told me to do, hit a bunch of fly balls.
How about a baseball nickname that you either have now or had during your playing days?
I guess it was just, I don't know where it just stuck, but it was just, I guess, just Big Ray, which is just ironic because I grew up, any team I was ever on, I was the smallest kid, all through high school. And, I got to Assumption, I was 140 pounds and got out of Assumption maybe 170. But, in the minor leagues, I guess I was a beneficiary of drinking a lot of milk and working out a lot. But, I don't know what my baseball card said, but I was always around the 240, 245, but it was just like a big rate. I guess that just stuck. But so it's a lot of fun. So I guess I just got to keep working out and bench pressing just to be able to continue to live up to that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's nice and simple, as we've heard with a lot of these nicknames here on the podcast. How about any superstitions?
Those I never really had, other than I was always a fanatic, just idiosyncratic about my equipment. And I think my wife can testify to that because, there's still catcher's mitts laying all over the house. And I got a big box of gear from my good friends at All-Star yesterday. My wife said, you've got far more catcher's gear and mitts than any current major league catcher could ever need, let alone you. But I was always just really particular about my equipment. And I guess the big thing was on the field, though, was just wearing wristbands. I had to have something on my wrist, just wearing wristbands and just having a really good mitt and a good, cool set of gear. And, I never had the obligatory, the shin guard and the arm pad or anything. We kind of didn't have those, but I always had the wristbands. And, just there's the nice shiny gear. And I guess just genetically that's transferred or something because last week at Leominster, my son was DH and he comes up and I hear out of the corner, he gets introduced and one of the fans said in a good-natured way, "Oh, here comes Mr. Accessories." And I look at him. You had the wristbands, you got the elbow guard, you got the shin guard. Now the shin guard legitimately, because there's still, he had the surgery and a steel plate and a bunch of screws in there. But I just looked at him and said, what the heck? Why not? These kids love that. These kids are as much into the gear as I was back then. But, it's just fun to see. So I guess I transferred my love of gear and the accessories has lived on. My son's got that. But that would be my big superstition, was probably just always having more gear than I needed.
Hey, you can never have enough gear.
Absolutely. That's my thought right now as I'm looking at 4 catcher's mitts and a big box from All-Star in the living room right now. Yeah.
There you go. And then, so you have 4 Red Sox rings. We're going to ask you the tough question. Which one of the 4 is your favorite?
It's got to go with number 1. The first one, 2004. Unfortunately, does not fit. I got the wrong. Does not fit, so I don't wear it a whole lot. But the first few times, I'd wear it to games. And at one time, I was covering the Manchester, New Hampshire Fisher Cats, AA team, Eastern League. And somebody came over to see it between innings. And next thing I know, there's literally a line of people. And one of the ushers actually came down between innings. It was kind of like directing traffic, if you will, but everybody wanted to come and see the ring. But so that I don't wear them as much anymore. I've got them, safely stored. But the 4 of them, like I said, the first one's the most significant because, that ended the drought. But, having 4 of them, so now like the boys' kid, all 3 of the boys have one now. My wife's got one. We still need one more. But you get greedy, you want more of them. But that was just it's such a thrill. And I actually pulled them out for the first time last year, all 4 of them. And took them out and showed them to somebody because, long story short, I went to somebody's house who was an avid collector and had an actual Babe Ruth autographed baseball that he's proud to show me. And the balls was valued about $1.4 million. And he pulled out the ball and said, "How about that?" I said, "It'd be really cool." And I reached into my pocket, pulled out the 4 World Series rings. So I'll send it to you guys. So I got a picture of a Babe Ruth, actual live Babe Ruth signed baseball with the 4 World Series rings. So I know the Bambino, in spite of his curse, was looking down on that, smiling. It was pretty cool. But those 4 rings are really cool. And there's a 5th one that I really like that's probably worth about $19, but nevertheless means a lot to me. But I actually got a ring from the All-Star game in '99 when I caught there in the bullpen Home Run Derby. So that one's pretty cool. But those things are just they're just invaluable treasures, and that's what the goal is every year. And hopefully, get a couple more of those. Got to get greedy, get a couple more of those before my run is over here.
Yeah, I'm sure the resale value on those things is incredible, but the sentimental memories and what they mean to you are far greater. Now, what I think you should do, I think you should get a chain and take a picture like Ortiz did with all 5 of the rings and send it to us.
I will do that. I will definitely do that. I'll definitely send a picture of the Babe Ruth ball, but I got to do that.
Beautiful.
I might even wear the form to a game. That'd be really cool.
Why not? Just let me know which one that is. I'll stop by.
Sounds good. I'll be there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm in the press box plenty if you want to come up and just brag about him or, I don't know, give me one.
I'll make a trip up there next time. Absolutely.
Perfect. And then more toward the general baseball questions. Bubblegum or sunflower seeds?
Big league chew, but I have the habit of that does not last long. I'll throw in the big league chew and then swallowing it. But sunflower seeds, which unfortunately, because the pandemic's kind of been put on hold a little bit, and they have to be plain. I will respect anybody's desire, anybody that likes barbecued or ranch or the salt and vinegar, whatever it is. But I like David's plain. You can't, that's the GOAT right there. You can't get any better than David's. Like I said, the big league chew, but just not a lot of longevity there because I just end up swallowing it so fast. You go through it so fast. But I go through my car in the trunk of my boys' equipment bags. There's half open, there's half consumed David's bags everywhere.
And then lastly, you have plenty, and I know this is going to be hard to choose, but how about a favorite all-time baseball memory?
All-star games got to be one. The obvious ones are, anytime I can point to my three boys, each having a particular highlight on the field, which is just as a dad, that usurps anything that I've ever done on the field. But one of them is, I've been released by the Pirates, but I still wanted to play. So I was sitting at my desk at Cigna Corporation, Hartford. Like I said, I've always stressed the academics. My parents always stressed that. So I did well in school, as a math geek. And I was probably the only professional catcher in baseball history that was an actuary in the off season. And I was sitting at my desk on June 21st in Cigna, and the phone, obviously knowing I wanted to play baseball some more. And the phone rang, and it was Ed Kenny, the farm director from the Red Sox. And he said, "Ray, we need a catcher. Do you want to play?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I figured I'd be going to the Penn League because I was watching the College World Series, and we had just drafted Eric Wedge, but he hadn't signed. And so as it turns out, Todd Pratt, who spent a long time in the big leagues with the Pirates, with the Mets rather, had gotten hurt. So he said, we need you at New Britain. He said, "Can you get there tonight? When can you get there?" He probably didn't expect for me to answer well in about 15 minutes, but I literally did. I said, "I can be there in 15 minutes. And he said, "Well, what about your job? Because this is like a real job." He said, "What about your job?" I said, "I don't care. I want to play baseball. I'm gone." So I told my boss about it, and they were very gracious enough to give me an extended leave of absence. So I showed up at New Britain Stadium about a half an hour later in my suit, and got in the game that night. So I went from, the night before playing a company softball game at Cigna to where I was in a AA lineup in New Britain, DHing. I believe Charlie Nagy pitched that night, but that was it. I mean, that's the ultimate. I mean, can't even make that story up. And then a couple weeks later that summer, I actually played at 3 levels in, I'll say 24 hours. Technically, it was a little bit over 24 hours, but we had an afternoon game in New Britain, and I played in that game. After the game, they told me Todd Pratt came off the DL, so I was being sent down to Winter Haven. So, went to Bradley, got on a plane, went down to Winter Haven. That next morning, played in a Gulf Coast League game. In about the 4th inning, the Winter Haven complex was the big league spring training stadium and the backfield. So we're playing the Gulf Coast League game on the backfields. At about the 4th inning, Dave Holt, who's the Winter Haven manager, I could see him coming down the hill in the golf cart. And he came to the field, talked to the manager, and they pulled me off the field. And there was a AA game there was a Class A game that night, Winter Haven, the Florida State League. And John Flaherty, who caught for about 14 years in big leagues, broke his hand the night before. So I went from New Britain to Winter Haven, Gulf Coast, to that night I played in the game in Lakeland for Winter Haven and the Florida State League. So it took over 24 hours, but three levels in about 24 hours. So that was a fun one. That was a memorable day.
I'm sure you don't need me to tell you this, but I guess that's the grind of a minor league baseball player, having to adjust and be flexible and doing whatever it takes.
That's good stuff. Uh-huh.
All right. Well, Ray, thank you so much for joining us today. Best of luck with everything. Safe travels in your trip down to Birmingham and wherever the next week takes you. And we're really excited to see you on the diamond at a Futures League game soon.
Will do. And thank you so much for having me. And thanks especially for what you guys have done this summer for these kids in the area and for the scouts and for the game of baseball in this area. You've been a godsend. We appreciate it.
Well, it means a lot to us, and we're really excited to get back to it soon and check out some of the scout days. Today, Monday, August 3rd, through Wednesday, August 5th will be the 3 scout days. Super excited to see. We'll have coverage from all 3 of those. But for right now, this has been episode 20 of Back to the Futures, the official podcast of the Futures Collegiate Baseball League. We have new episodes coming out every Monday and Thursday. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast. We're streaming on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see everyone soon.